you traded corporate world success, right? Success at that to community work and advocacy. What made you want to go down that, path?
Well, I was doing this thing where I was like leading with my heart in
Mm,
some work, right, in local faith-based structures and serving community there. But professionally, I was selling widgets and gizmos, potions and lotions, right, and had seen success in that for over 20 some odd years. A turning point for me is, in the grind of selling the things and hitting the bottom line and making the numbers. Both my children were launched off to college, and I remember lecturing my son on the way to school about doing better in school, so he could achieve better. And he said, "Mom, you never finished college, and you did quite well, right?" And so, at that point, I, had to walk the talk.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
I went back to community college at the time. I think I was 40 years old. I had been disconnected from learning about 20 some years or whatever, and began to really say, what are the things that I'm passionate about? And it was driving efficient businesses, being highly successful, harnessing resources, and driving
Mhm.
production and efficiency. And I brought that acumen though into the nonprofit space with the same zeal and passion, knowing that if we can be more efficient in our nonprofit spaces, if we can harness our resources in a way to have greater impact, then we can touch more people. So I'm very much interested in systems change work, right? How do we, from a micro lens, create better environments so that more families can be successful in the long run? But on a micro lens, like I like the human touch and I like to know that what we're doing makes a difference for everyday folks. So that for me, that conversation with my son allowed me to pivot my focus and really take the learnings that I had experienced in the for-profit sector to say, how can I take experientially what I've learned,
Mm.
take the business acumen that I'm gaining in college settings, and then harness the power of community to drive better outcomes for people. And this is to me the work that matters. It's the work that doesn't shut
Yeah.
off at 5 p.m. It's the work that in the grocery store or, when I'm at the gas station, I'm running into folks and I really want to be a conduit for the power of God, first and
Yep.
foremost, but also for the power of community and connection.
You said so much in that one little, situation of this conversation we're about to have. And I really want to break down. You mentioned learning from your son. So many people feel that they can't learn from someone younger than them, someone that hasn't lived life like them. But you learn from that moment, right? Another thing you mentioned is walking the walk. Walking,
Yeah.
say whatever you're saying that you're actually doing that yourself. And I remember that I was 30 years old when, I'm telling my daughter, use your voice, speak up. But I didn't do that for 30 years,
Mm.
and I remember my mom, something that just triggered me and just kind of shut me off. And I'm an adult now. I just don't have to pick up your phone call. Like that's just what it looks like now. And I remember thinking to myself, you know what? I have to have that conversation with her because I'm asking my daughter to be, to use her voice and to speak up. But if I haven't done that in 30 years,
Yeah.
is she really like, you know what I'm saying? So when you
Yeah.
said that, is I had to do that. The school situation, it's so funny that you say that. So I'm gonna kind of go and I really want to talk about that because I am someone that I have made a career without college. I got
Hmm.
like two classes left to get an associate's degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've opened up businesses. I'm a president of a foundation. I have my own company. What is and the only reason I want to finish is to when I tell my kids, you have options. Dad
Yes.
did this and dad did this. Don't you sit here and be less
Yeah.
than, right? Don't be less than.
Right.
What is your thoughts though on that? When your son is saying, "Oh, finish college," did your mind go into that space? Like, wait a minute, I gotta let him know that you got options.
Yeah. And so I think that, like, as parents, right, we lean passionately on the lessons we've learned, and we don't want our children to take the hard road to learn those lessons,
Mhm.
right? So let me give you the cheat codes. College is not the do all be all, right? So there's this whole conversation now, is college even relevant, right?
Mhm.
Is it worth the investment? And I would say, like, that's a very individual question that people have to grapple with. But in talking to my son, who's black male, coming up in this world, and
Mhm.
I'm like, I want you to have options. I want you to be able to choose what doors to go through. And the reality is, yes, I was making good money. I was taking care of my children, But there were some doors I could not go through because I didn't have those credentials. And so my thing was, never again would a person be able to tell me you're not qualified.
Yeah.
Could I have done the job without the college degree? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I had the
Hmm.
experience. I knew what to do. I was far better suited. But there was language that I didn't have because I wasn't in formal settings, in which when I showed up in the room, I needed to be able to code switch. You know, I'm quoting Du Bois here, code switch in a way that they knew I knew what I was talking about,
Mm.
not just experientially, but academically. So let me give you the methodology. Let me give you the framework. Let me give you the context that validates my experience in these spaces. And you can no longer say, like, oh, we'd love to bring you on, but you just didn't meet the credentials. Because I got letters behind my name all day
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
now. Like, so we're not playing with that.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would take that off the table. And I do think, like, in this whole world right now, when we talk about people being qualified and the removal of DEI and all of these things, right? People of color have to be sure that we show up in a way that does not allow folks to eliminate us from the conversation or the selection process.
You going somewhere with this? Let me explain to you what happened here. Okay, I was this 19-year-old kid working at a Subway. I spent 8 years there out of high school, and I wanted to do more, obviously, and I did great for the company. 8 years, I was running $1 million store. Any new store they wanted me to open, any manager struggling, I was the guy. I'm young, 27 years old, and I wanted to do more. And I remember being overlooked time and time again, right? And it was because I didn't have that piece of paper. So someone that came in had no restaurant business experience at all,
Yep.
got the job because of the piece of paper. But I knew that I ran circles around this guy,
Yeah.
right? And it bothered me because I'm like, man, just because this man understands black and white, he don't understand people. He don't know what it looked like to get here. You know, he don't understand struggles. And then you put me in the hood, I understood that. That's why I
Yeah.
succeeded,
Yeah.
right? I didn't need a degree to succeed in the hood. So yes, I do believe that sometimes because we don't have, to me, no disrespect to you,
Mm-hmm.
Angela, this piece of paper that we often get overlooked because we
Absolutely.
of color, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's and you're also a woman in this space. Makes it a little
Yeah.
bit difficult. Do you feel like that was also something that was kind of holding you back in a sense?
Absolutely. I think being a black woman, right, showing up in spaces, being very vocal, you know,
Mhm.
being prone to ask hard questions, very unapologetic um, in how I show up in my identity, and very quick to disrupt a conversation when I feel as though we're not being fair or being equitable, that we're being biased in our approach, and we have these subtleties in how we make decisions, right? So being willing to interrupt those in spaces, I will say that I think my academic background and experiential background allowed me to have conversations that would not otherwise be tolerated, right?
Mm,
So that there's that. You mentioned people having these academic backgrounds, right? You got paper, right? You have degrees, but you don't know how to talk to folks. And you particularly don't know how to talk to folks in our communities
hmm.
where you're making money and receiving funding to support our communities,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So I think that's critically important too, to know that there is a way of knowing, right, that transcends degrees, right? There are cultural competencies a lot of times that people may miss or don't know, and there are community competencies that are often underlooked, even in how we engage one another.
Hmm.
And we're quick to study that when we go to other countries, right? I just came
Yeah.
from Japan, right? They bow. That is their culture. There's a culture of respect. On public transportation, they respect silence because that is their culture. But we will take a 10-minute ride into another community and not take the time and diligence to understand the nuances of that culture, what respect looks like,
Hmm.
what honor looks like, how to engage folks. And I do find the same context that shows up in the educational settings when we talk about how parents are showing up in space, and if their voices are not just welcome and engaged, but if they're honored and respected.